Untitled Japanese green tea.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Griff. And today we're going to give you a overview introduction of Sencha and also show you how to brew it.
Alright, let's get things started.
Yeah. I guess the first thing, it's interesting. So this is like our first official tea video, well, second official tea video, but like first one about tea again in our new series. And it's actually really interesting because our very first tea video was about how to make sencha, and we rewatched it recently, and it's just kind of funny how like uncomfortable we seemed on camera back then. And I don't know, it's like maybe you guys would like check that out too. Just see us over 5 years.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
It's like
but
2008.
you know, there is a number of things that we could have improved on in that video, so that's why we're doing this one.
Yep, and I guess we figured we could present this better. We've actually thought out a bit more, but yeah.
Anyway, so I guess to start,
I guess we have a bit of a history lesson to start with.
Start with
a very brief history lesson for those of you who
yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's not really that much history recorded, at least in English anyway, about sencha. We know that it was brought from China sometime after matcha, and then Japan sort of perfected it, if you will. But there's not really too much other than just that basic information out there.
At least like when we did a fair bit of research on it, but we were researching in English, so at least for any credible source, that's about all we came across.
But I don't know, just a general like about sencha is it's the most popular tea really in Japan. Like 75 to 80% of their tea is sencha, and yeah, they just when you brew sencha, it should be green. Like a lot of tea that you'll find here will be like yellow. It should be at least like greenish yellow, like
yeah. And it depends. It depends, but yeah, definitely needs to. There's a lot of tea here that's low quality, and if you ever brewed a Japanese tea bag and it comes out yellow, that's why, because it's low quality.
With Chinese tea, what they'll typically do is pan fire it, which I think that would be hoji cha if you're drinking Japanese green tea. They do that, but with Chinese tea, pretty much all their tea is pan fired, whereas Japanese, like sencha and a bunch of other different kinds of teas, they're steamed. They're deep steamed or steamed, and that's what makes it, I don't know, super awesome, I guess.
Yeah, that's just simply the main difference between Japanese and Chinese teas. I guess at least in our opinion and how our tastes work, we prefer the steam to the pan fired. Although the pan fired does have more longevity, I guess. Like Japanese tea will spoil quicker, but either way, so there's a lot of growing regions in Japan that grow tea in general and specifically sencha. Some of the ones we wanted to highlight were so first Uji. Uji is it's a part of Kyoto, of the greater Kyoto area, and this is considered to be the traditional. It's not technically the birthplace, but like this is where Japanese tea was. It's where its roots are from, and where it became what it is today, and that's where you will see a lot of the traditional teas. The tea shop Tsuan, which is, I think, fairly well known, is from there. Yeah, so that's
Uji is where it's at.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Next is Shizuoka. And by the way, if you're wondering where Uji's, like I said, it's part of Kyoto, so it's kind of, I guess, middle, slightly to the west in Japan. Whereas Shizuoka is sort of near Tokyo, sort of near Mount Fuji. And this is where most tea from that's like produced for industry. So like say in Japan, I believe there's green tea Kit Kat bars, the chocolate stuff, and
like ice cream.
Yeah.
And all of that.
That's where it's mostly known for. There's other great teas that come from there that are just like traditional style sencha, but that's what it's mostly for. And yeah, so it's more eastern and sort of near Tokyo area. And then lastly, a new one is Kagoshima. I guess not that new, like 50, 60 years, but based compared to
new on the scale that we're on.
Exactly. And Kagoshima is the most southern tip of Japan. I guess Okinawa, the little island, is lower.
Yeah.
But like if you're just thinking of like mainland Japan, Kagoshima is the most southern, and it's becoming more and more popular. One of the things about tea plants is the older they are, typically the better they are. So because it's younger, it hasn't been that much of a credible source for great tea. But now that the tea plants have aged, we're getting into a time where they're churning out some pretty interesting and excellent teas. So with that said, why don't we dive into it?
Okay, so to start, we have our teaware here, and our kyusu, and we have our cups here.
Yeah.
Our scoop.
Our scoop, by the way, you see there's two ways to brew. There is very specific where you can use like a scale to measure out how much, and then there's what we like to call touch and feel brewer, and we're more touch and feel. So this scoop comes out to roughly 1 tablespoon. So if you want to try to gauge off of this video how much to brew, one scoop, one measurement of that is 1 tablespoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we have our cans of tea, which have like a seal there to keep it fresh. And this is actually a hoin, but I like to use it as a water cooler because it works pretty good as that. And I don't usually get to use a hoin for its intended purpose. So to start, before you just put the water into your tea, you want it to be cooled down a bit. So I have my water boiling here at 208, which is
like
almost
95 Celsius. Yeah, and that's one thing that's really important that I think some people want to save a bit of time on, is they will try to just boil their water up to say like 80 degrees Celsius, and because that's sort of the target range. 70 to 80 degrees is kind of the target range for sencha, so they'll boil it up to that point. But what you really want to do is go all the way, boil it all the way, and then bring it back down through.
Well, it's also good because, like, as you saw, I put it into my cups first so it will cool down a bit. But what that also does is it heats up the cup so that when you pour your tea back into the cup's already warm, and the tea doesn't lose its heat like right away.
And there's even another benefit to that, which is the aeration, where through all the pouring you're doing, you're actually bringing more air back, or more oxygen back into the water, which will give you a bit more of a lively cup of tea.
So I'm just pouring my cups now into the kyusu, but there's no tea in here yet.
Yeah.
So it's just going to cool it down a little bit more, and it'll heat up the kyusu. So once again, it's already warm, and then you won't lose the heat once you get it to the temperature that you want it to. Beat that.
Yeah. So there's a few different kinds of sencha, and a good way to divide it is by how much they were steamed. As we mentioned earlier, the last step of the process is like the steaming the tea. And there's really 3 sections. One's called azumushi, chumushi, and fukamushi. And those are light, medium, and deep steamed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what that essentially comes to is light steamed are typically very like they have slightly longer brew times. They're from 1 minute to like 1:45. I guess closer to 1.5 minutes to 1:45 really. Deep steamed are typically closer to 40 seconds to a minute. I think when we filmed the first video we were doing Fukamushis, I think we said 40 seconds for that. And Chumushis obviously somewhere in between. And yeah, so, and the differences are light steamed are more delicate in flavor, I guess you could say. A lot more subtle hints of aromas, of tastes. Very elegant usually. Whereas Fukamushi is a lot more stronger tasting, a lot more vegetal. Sometimes people use the term grassy to describe it, and as well as a little more astringent too. So what are we brewing today?
So we're brewing some Chumushi today. So just like a basic in-between Sencha. And for this set, it's about 150 milliliters or so. I'm just going to use, for me, about 2 scoops, but it might be more or less a little bit depending on your
taste. And we've been drinking tea for a while, so it seems like the longer you go, this you usually up the amount of leaf throughout. But so yeah, so our measurements are 2 cups, Unomi cups. Those little cups are called Unomi, for 2 tablespoons. And if you're more of a, you want to get right down to specifics, the usual number is 1 gram of dry leaf weight per 50 milliliters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and how we do it is a little less precise. And how long are we going to brew this one for?
About a minute for this one.
Okay.
So, once again, like, depending on your taste, you might want to brew it a little bit less or more. But for this tea, about a minute.
Yeah.
That's what we're aiming for.
And the temperature is about?
Usually you'd want no more than 80 degrees. But for this, it's about like 78 or something. You can use a thermometer if you think it helps, but we just go by feel.
Yeah, so, and we sometimes test, like, see if we're actually still accurate. Now, what he's doing is pouring into both cups. And what he's done is he starts at pouring 1/3 into one cup, about 2/3 into the other, equals out on the other one, and then, like, you just sort of pour out the last little bit into each one. And this is actually pretty important because the last few drops are a lot stronger than what you first poured. So obviously it makes it measuring a lot easier, but also it keeps both cups consistent. So that's typically how you do. You pour 1/3 in one, 2/3 in the other, another third in that one, and then just the last few drops. Now, another thing he's doing is he's being very careful to get all the water out, or as much as possible. But one thing that he's not doing is
shaking it.
Yeah.
You don't want to shake it because that's actually, like, I don't know, it's bad because it will take out the stuff, like, in the leaves that you don't want to take out necessarily, or I don't know.
Pretty much it makes the tea taste a lot more
like,
astringent. Or not a lot more astringent, but it'll make it taste more astringent and will kind of, I don't know, make the next brews not as good. Which is actually something that a lot of people don't know, is you can reuse the leaves.
Yeah, depending on the tea you get, certain teas will have more longevity than others, but you could brew it 3 to like 6 or 7 times if you wanted.
Yep.
With just the same leaves.
Yep. And I guess just a general standard of quality is you should be able to get 3 infusions out of it. And so depending on what tea you're using, it'll differ. But the first infusion, like for this one, we did it for a minute. The second one would probably be about 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
The third one would be back at matching it at a minute. And then beyond that, you're really kind of on your own, pick your own numbers. But like if we were to brew this one again for a fourth, we'd probably go for like, what, a minute and a half, 2 minutes?
Yeah, once you get like further and further, it'll take longer. But
yeah.
The second one's usually like 30 seconds. If you're brewing Fukamushi, your second infusion is usually a 0-second infusion, which I know it's not really possible, but you pour the water in and you immediately pour it into the cups.
Yeah, and you get like such a dark green color, and it's so interesting to see.
Yeah.
I guess just the last thing we need to touch on, which is something that we kind of missed, was another thing. Again, like there's sort of some proper treatment with the leaves. So going back to pouring out the last few drops, it's because you don't want to have water in there to continue infusing between your steeps.
Same with like you don't want to have the lid like on it like this when you're when it's sitting, because it will like infuse upon itself.
Yeah, the steam will keep. You want the steam to come out, and so you just crack it open like that, or take it right off if that's your preference. So yeah, I think we have about all the bases covered in an overview sort of way, and how to get started, how to brew. Yeah. If there's anything that you thought that we missed or something that you were wondering about, just leave a comment or something and we will answer it. Yeah. Maybe even make a video about it. Yeah. I hear we're making a video for GoPro next time. Yeah. Yeah. So. You know, and again, like, so we really like to make these videos for you guys. So, if you want to suggest something, you can suggest it in the comments. You can visit our forum, which is theartofjapanesegreentea.com/forum. And we're probably a little quicker to responding there because we check that pretty often. So yeah. Yeah, and we really like to listen to what you guys have to say. We try to do, we like to do things too. We'll try to accommodate. And yeah, so if you have any ideas for us to do, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah. So, bonus content.
Yeah, so I guess that pretty much wraps it up. So that's just an overview, a basic guide to how to brew Sencha, and a bit of information about it.
Alright, well, I think on our first video we made a bit of a joke about how we could do an ending section on spoons, and a few of you guys, Waffle Guy and Crimson God, have requested that we did do that. So now we're actually going to.
Yeah. And that,
spoons, yeah.
I guess it's XX, Waffle Guy, XX, and Crimson God, X. You like your X's.
As in your X's. And your spoons.
And your spoons. And today we're going to talk about spoons for you guys and for everyone else. Yeah. And in case anyone else mentioned that and we forgot.
So we have here my 5 different spoons.
Fine assortment.
Yeah. The first one I guess I'll talk about is my favorite spoon here, which I pretty much use for 90% of all of my spooning. Well, okay, for leaf tea. For leaf tea, it's about 99% of my spooning. The reason that I like this one is because it's a tablespoon measurement, which I don't know, the size of it just works really well for us, I don't know. But it's also got like a short handle, which is, I don't know, you might think it's a minor thing, but when you're spooning this several times every day for forever, it actually does make a difference. And it's just a bit more control, I don't know, it's easy to scoop accurately. It has a nice feel to it, I guess. Yeah.
No, I guess the opposite of that is this spoon, which is a longer handle. And it's also smaller in size, but this one is very useful for scooping out of a bag. Like if you like to keep your tea in even the original bag that it comes, that's fine. And this gives you more reach because that one would be too short, obviously, to get right down in there and scoop out what's in the bottom. And I guess being smaller, that also kind of helps. And I guess just aesthetically, something you might have noticed is these are both made of wood, which is just, you know, a nice aesthetic feel. And you can really use any spoon you'd like, be it like a teaspoon or whatever, but you know, that works for us. It matches everything else.
This one I have, it's pretty nice looking. It's a piece of cherry bark.
Yeah.
But it's not really that practical because, as you can see, it's just like a flat piece. So you can't really like scoop and say that's a tablespoon or it's very hard. It's hard to measure it with, and it's kind of hard to scoop with actually because you put it in and you pick it up and it slides off, and it looks really nice though.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Which is why I got it, but I used it a couple times and then I was like, yeah, it's not working out. This one, I don't know. This just came with an order once.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm not entirely sure if it came specifically with an item or if because it cost a certain amount you get a free spoon. But yeah, and you know, it's same as a scoop, I guess. That one's actually made of plastic, which kind of cool, but
and I don't know. It's hard to beat this one, so. But it's another one. It's more flat, I guess, if you are into that. But once again, hard to measure with, and it doesn't look as nice as this one.
Yeah, so, that one looks the best though, but it doesn't work that well. So I guess so far all those are about leaf teas. So that covers Sencha, Gyokuro, Hojicha, Genmaicha, everything like that. But now we have
Chashaku.
A chashaku, and this one is used for matcha, and it's used specifically for the tea ceremony. But I think it's become pretty common. Like it's to know like how much a chashaku scoop holds is probably the most common measurement when you talk about like brewing matcha, whether you use it ceremoniously or not.
Yeah, I haven't really heard of anyone brewing matcha with like weight measurements. Yeah. Pretty much this is what you want for that, because I don't know how they figured it out, but it just, you scoop it in and it works so perfectly every time.
Yeah.
But it's just a piece of bamboo. Yeah. But for matcha, if you want to get into like doing matcha properly, this is what you need.
Yeah.
For a scoop. Anyway.
So that's a variety of spoons, and again, you can use anything you really want. I guess one thing is just it works best when you get use one over and over again because you get very familiar with its size and all that. And actually, it's funny because I have some of this. I think I actually have one of everything here, and I had this spoon too. This is my favorite one too. I have one that's almost the same, and I lost it once, and that's why I got one of these Sakura ones, and it just did not work out as well. And I found it, and I was so happy to find it. It's just, you know, you get used to it. That's fine.